Hello students, I am Dr. Nilesh Savan from the Savan Science Academy and I am back with a new lecture that is of the remaining classes of fungi. So we are finished with Phycomycetes, Ascomycetes. So today we will see Basidiomycetes and the Deuteromycetes, last two ones. So let's see. So in Basidiomycetes, these three examples, agaricus means mushrooms, Eustylago means mutts, and Puccinia, which is a parasite which causes wheat rust. Okay, so introduction of fungus में we have already studied Puccinia, that is it causes wheat rust. Okay, so these three examples you must learn and that will come for other entrances, so it's important for your entrances. Next one, that's the reason why this is called as class of mushrooms, because all mushrooms are included in Basidiomycetes. Puff balls you can call it also, or it can be called as bracket fungi. Puff balls, because you have seen mushrooms, they are quite swollen, fluffy bodies, so that's why we call them as puff balls. Okay. Next one, again the habitat is not a big issue, because we know funguses love moist, damp places for their growth, hot and humid. So they grow on moist soils, then logs, decaying logs, and few of them are parasites, as I mentioned over here. Puccinia, which causes wheat rusts. Okay, Eustylago, that is also one of the kind of a parasite. Okay, again the main feature to be learned over here is the myceliums of this fungus. It is branched and septate. We have already studied this in Ascomycetes. Ki ye agar hyphae, this is the hyphae, then each and every cell is separated from the other with the help of septals. Okay, plus they can also form branches. Okay, the hyphae can also be branched, so that is a feature we get over here. So branched and septate hyphae. Now asexual spores are absent over here, but vegetative methods of asexual reproduction are present over here. So neither conidiospores or sporangiospores, not zygo or aplanospores. So either ऐसे कोई asexual spores है ही नहीं. So the Basidiomycetes, they don't produce any asexual spores. हाँ, but they have the vegetative method, fragmentation, budding. So ये उसमें देखने को मिलता है. Next one is the sex organs. Now, considering that they don't have sex organs and gametes are absent in this case, but they perform sexual reproduction. Okay, I have already made a video on sexual methods of reproduction in funguses. So you can kindly watch that, and in that we have seen a short, I'll explain this in short. So in that we have studied कि in case of Basidiomycetes, two hyphae over here come together of two different fungus, and which are also genetically different and from two different funguses. So if this okay, I'll just represent it by another color. So these are the two hyphae. So once they meet, so what they will do, they will, the tip cells, they will merge to form a single cell, but in that single cell, what you can say 3, 4, yes. So they will merge, and this will lead to plasmogamy. So the nucleuses of these hyphae and the nucleuses of these hyphae will be like this. So this is the plasmogamy which they are talking about. Next one is in this, now the nucleuses, they will divide 1, 2, 3, and this one is 1, 2, and 3. So in this region, what you can see is this nucleus will double up, and even this nucleus is going to double. Then I explained you that they will show clamp formation. Now what is clamp formation? So what you can say, a duct-like structure will join this cell, and a duct-like structure will join this cell. So this common cell produces a tube-like structure which is called as clamp formation. So one of the red will come over here, red nucleus, and one of the green will go over there. So in this way, again this will produce clamp with this will produce clamp with this, and eventually after what you can say, this all happens, all the cells over here 1 2 3 and 1 2 and 3, all of them will have one of this nucleus and one of this nucleus. So each and every cell of that hyphae is going to get converted, they will show plasmogamy and dikaryon stage. So out of this I am just taking one of this cell. So suppose this cell is here and this one, so it will produce first a sac-like structure, okay, and in that eventually this sac-like structure will be developed, and these karyons will be shift on into this, and this is the dikaryon stage over here, and then this is going to merge, and then this is going to form syngamy, which is this, and then it will undergo meiosis, and meiosis it will form 4 cells. Now this will develop into a basidiocarp, and that basidiocarp, on that these spores will be exogenous over there, which will be then dispersed with the help of air currents and all. So in this way sexual reproduction takes place. So these are the stages: plasmogamy, which is this one, plasmogamy takes place, then the dikaryon stage, initially this will form, and this is the dikaryon stage, then syngamy will take place followed by meiosis, so syngamy followed by meiosis, and after that basidiospores will then form basidiocarps. So they are going to form basidiocarps, and from that these spores will be released, and each spore potentially can form a new fungus. So in this way I have already explained this, so you can watch the video that is for sexual reproduction in funguses. Okay, so this is how Basidiomycets reproduce sexually. Now last class, that is Deuteromycetes. Now you can say this is like a temporary category of funguses or class which has been formed, because that it is given a name that is imperfect fungus. Why? Because still maximum information about these types of funguses is not known clearly. Means we know how they asexually reproduce and we know the vegetative methods of reproduction, but sexual reproduction is still unidentified in these category of funguses. So scientists believe that once they get to know how these funguses reproduce sexually, so they can put them in their respective groups, which are the first 3 groups: Phyco, Asco or Deutero. Basically Asco and Deuteromycetes category में. So Asco and Basidiomycetes category. So if and when the sexual reproduction of the respective funguses will be identified, so we'll see in which category does it fits, in which class, maybe Phyco, maybe Asco, maybe Basidio. So we'll put them over there, but till date their sexual reproduction, how they reproduce, is still unidentified. That's why we are calling them as imperfect fungus, and that's the reason why they are categorized into this separate class, because every organism do sexually reproduce. Even we say bacteria also sexually reproduce. So obviously these fungus can also be reproducing sexually also, but it is not identified yet. So that's why this is a temporary category which has been prepared over here. Again, if you see the mycelium, these are branched and septates. I've already explained about them. Asexual spores, they are conidias. These are exogenous spores. I've already explained in the last video also, because ascomycetes show conidia formation. So conidias, that is conidiospores, are formed by that is the asexual spores which are found over here, and these are, as you know, exogenously formed. Vegetative methods we all know: fragmentation, budding वगैरह है. Sexual reproduction तो is unidentified, so that's the basic part. Again, these are also saprophytes, decomposers. Some might be parasites like trichoderma, which causes fungal infections in humans. Okay, alternaria. So these are some of the examples which they have given. So nothing much in depth for Deuteromycetes. So these are the few points to be remembered with this, and the examples to be learned. So as I told you in the last video, we'll just see what you can say, comparative differences, or you can say some points of all the 4 categories of funguses. Let's see. So we'll see Phycomycets, then we have Ascomycets, then we have Basidiomycets, and the last but not the least is Deuteromycetes. Okay, so we'll just compare them first. So commonly what they are called. So first point we can use is what are they commonly called. Phycomycets ko to kuch nahi, but we call Ascomycets as sac fungi. Today we studied Basidiomycetes. They are called as we know, mushrooms. Then we call them as bracket fungi. We call them as puff balls. We call them as puff balls. And this one, last one, they are called as imperfect fungi. Okay, so these are the names. Then second point that we use is for the myceliums. So we know these are what you can say, septate and ciniocytic hyphase, okay, which is only found in this Phycomycets. Rest other we know these are branched and septates. These are also branched and septates, hyphase or myceliums we can call them, and these are also branched and septate hyphase. So mycelium, if we speak, it is in this way. So we'll see the points. So this is about the mycelium. These are the common names by which we call them. So ये सबको समझे. So these are the 2 points. सबसे the main points which they ask is important is asexual spores. Vegetative method is present in all, so that is not an issue. Asexual spores. Phycomycets produce what? Asexual spores में जब हम बात करते हैं, so basically they show fragmentation and all, and in asexual spores they basically form sporangiospores, as I already explained, in which two types of asexual spores: zoospores, which are motile spores, and aplanospores, which are non-motile spores. So these two spores are basically formed in as an asexual spores in Phycomycets. Here we know that is conidiospores are formed, and these are generally exogenous spores. Okay, conidias are formed over here, and in case of aplano, so you know these are sporangia. They have sporangias, so these are generally endogenous spores. These are exogenous spores. Basidiomycetes absent. Asexual spores are not produced by Basidio, whereas we know conidiospores are produced by Deuteromyces, and we know these are exogenous. So these are the most important points for distinguish, or the entrance part, which moderators generally ask in either which of the following statements are correct, or they can ask which type of spores are produced in that. Next one is the sexual spores. So in case of sexual spores in Phycomycets, as we know, हमने पढ़े थे oospores and zygospores. These are formed, ठीक है, which are basically exogenous category only, ठीक है, which are basically exogenous category only, ठीक है. And then in case of this Ascomycets, ascospores, ठीक है, ascospores are called, ठीक है, ascites we call them, and generally these are endo again, So these are endogenous category of spores because they are found in that ascospore, ascocarp, which then bursts open to release it. So these are found inside. Here in Basidiomycets we have Basidiospores, and in this lecture only, just before this I explained it, they are formed exogenously and dispersed via air currents. We have already studied about that. And last but not the least, here though it is not identified, sexual reproduction is not identified, so no sexual spores over here. So these are the 4 points which are very important for your entrances, and generally these are the points on which a question can be asked on the kingdom fungi. The entire 4 classes are just explained in a small brief note like pattern, so you can just have a screenshot and write it down as your notes. So these are the key differences between these 4 classes, and generally ini mein se some of the point can be asked over here as an distinguish or maybe correct, wrong or right statements, so you can write this. So also kingdom fungus is quite clear to all. So we'll just see the last 2 kingdoms because in this chapter they are not mentioned very in such a detail, because the next 2 chapters is kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia itself. So basically all the details are present in those chapters. So we'll just look around with the kingdom Plantae. So we'll just see the 5 characters which were 5 points given by Whittaker. So obviously these are all, again, most of the members are multicellular eukaryotes, again, except again some few algae also which might be unicellular. So but basically majority of the members are multicellular eukaryotes. So the next 2 points goes without saying, they have a well-defined nucleus and they have membrane-bound organelles, especially plastids, which have chlorophyll, and obviously because of which they are photoautotrophs. So but obviously mode of nutrition, if we see in them, these are photoautotrophs. Some exceptions are there. Some are partially heterotrophs. Okay, like example they have given over there, that is pitcher plant or bladderwort or Venus flytrap. Now generally these plants which I mentioned, now they grow in such a soil where the nutrients are very less. So they have their photochlorophyll pigments, means they can produce from sunlight, but the raw materials, minerals which are required, they are absent in soil. So what they do, they trap the insects and they digest it and they derive those nutrients from there. So little bit you can say they are like heterotroph mode of nutrition, but they can prepare their own food by photosynthesis only. So partially heterotrophs. Some might be even parasitic like a scuta. Okay, so that can be a parasite, but maximum members are obviously photoautotrophs. So in this case, next one, mode of reproduction. Again, there are various asexual methods, vegetative methods, plus they have their own sexual method of reproduction via saying angiosperms, that are flowers, true flowers. Gymnosperms, flower like structures are present, they are not true flowers. While in the last 3, algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, sexual reproduction is a little bit complicated one. Okay, so we'll see in the next chapter how it goes. So they show these 2 modes of reproduction, sexual and asexual. Partially heterotroph, the mode of nutrition, this is the mode of reproduction, this is the cell type and nature of it. So we'll see this and we'll see the types, means plants are further categorized in cryptogams, phanerogams. Cryptogams are further classified into algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, and phaneros in gymnosperms and angiosperms. For the angiosperms are divided into dicots and monocots. So we'll see each and every part in detail, that will be in next chapter. So these are kingdom Plantae, which we will be seeing in the next lesson in detail. Similarly, the last kingdom of the Whittaker system's kingdom Animalia. Obviously, again these are multicellular eukaryotes. One more point, multicellular eukaryotes, again these are heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Some might be parasites, some might be saprophytes. Okay, so वो भी एक है. And obviously they exhibit holozoic mode of nutrition. Holozoic means ingesting it, so that is holozoic mode. Also is shown in animals. Obviously here you can see again asexual methods is generally seen of reproduction in lower animals. Higher animals generally follow sexual methods because that is more evolved and a guaranteed method of reproduction. ठीक है, एक और है, they can locomote. Main features of locomote, then the absence of cell wall is the key feature of an animal cell, and obviously plastids are also absent in case of animal cell. Apart from that, the growth is definite in case of animals. From these points we can also point some we can say similar points comparatively in plants. Obviously cannot locomote, they cannot locomote, but they have cell wall made up of generally cellulose, cell wall present, and even plastids are present in case of plants. ठीक है, next one more thing, growth here is indefinite in case of plants. ठीक है, growth is indefinite. So in this case these are some of the distinguishing points between kingdom Plantae and Animalia. So also the features and examples, so you might be knowing, you can take any examples of plants, mango or other coconut, any rose वगैरह. And animals, so there are also many animals, you can give examples of them also. So these are some of the points of differences. You can say comparatively, you can, this is similar. Okay, again unicellular are very less. Okay, some of them, some exceptions might be there. Heterotrophs, these are autotrophs. Asexual is evolved in lower animals, but higher animals have sexual. यहाँ पे asexual, sexual is both seen in even higher plants also. And they cannot locomote, they cannot locomote in plants, and in animals they can locomote. They have a definite the cell wall is absent, plastid is absent, and this is cell wall present, and this. And one more point we can add over here, that is storage. Storage of food is done in the form of starch. Okay, whereas in animal storage of food is generally in the form of glycogen. Okay, so generally food stored in plants is in the form of starch, and in animals it is glycogen. So rest of the details and the categories or classes we'll be studying in the subsequent lessons. So this is it with today's lecture. So one last lecture is left for those we can say organisms technically which are not included in Whittaker system. That is the viroids, then viruses and lichens. So in our last lecture of this lesson we'll complete that very part. So guys, hit the like button, subscribe the channel, comment, share it with your friends, and hit the bell icon for further notifications. Thank you.